All right. Looks like people are starting to join. Hello, Luisa, Maria. Hello, Margaret. Mary. Hello, Gerson, Wasabi, Meredith. Hello, Gita. All right. Hello, Amaranta. So we will be continuing reading through the Sutta Advice to Sigālaka, and we started this morning, and we'll continue to finish out this this long sutta. We went through about half of the sutta, and the Buddha talking about things like virtuous friends and avoiding drinking and being out late at night and gambling and all of these kind of things. And so we're continuing on with number 11. The link is in the description. So if you'd like to follow along, we're about halfway through section 11, Fake Friends. Householder's son, you should recognize these 4 enemies disguised as friends. The taker, the talker, the flatterer, and the spender. You can recognize a fake friend who's all take on 4 grounds. Your possessions end up theirs. That is certainly a taker, isn't it? Somehow your possessions end up being theirs. You go over their house and you start seeing things. Wait a second. I always wondered where that went. Giving little, they expect a lot. So the first one, maybe they're taking possessions, but this one is they expect you to do a lot for them, but they don't really give much in return. They're a taker. They're taking your time, taking your effort, taking your energy. They do their duty only out of fear, meaning that the fear is the motivation for them to do anything for you. because maybe they don't want to ruin a good thing. Right? They got you. You're a good use to them. So every once in a while they'll do their duty, just to make sure that you're kept around, so they can keep taking, and taking. Or they associate for their own advantage. You can recognize a fake friend who's all take on these 4 grounds. You can recognize a fake friend who's all talk on these 4 grounds. They're hospitable in the past. They're hospitable in the future. They're full of meaningless pleasantries. When something needs doing in the present, they point to their own misfortune. So what's this? They're hospitable in the past. Oh, don't you remember all those things I did for you in the past? Like gaslighting you? Or, oh, I'll do all these things for you in the future. Promises that will never be kept. But in the present, if you need them, oh, sorry, look at the time. Oh, I have all these things I have to do. I have all these problems. I can't possibly do this. This is a talker, right? Somebody who, after a short period of time, you'll realize that their words are useless. Their words are meaningless. You cannot trust them. Same thing when we were talking this morning about the addict and the gambler who want to keep borrowing from you so they can get the next gamble. And the Buddha says that their word is no longer trusted. That's one of the side effects. When you have somebody who's a talker, you know after a while you cannot trust their words. It's just hot air, to use a modern Western simile. Just hot air. Nothing actually virtuous, nothing useful. Just a talker. Yeah, full of meaningless pleasantries, right? They want to flatter you and make everything sound nice, but there's no solidity behind there. It's all hollow. You can recognize a fake friend who's all talk on these 4 grounds. You can recognize a fake friend who's a flatterer on 4 grounds. They support you equally in doing bad and doing good. They praise you to your face and put you down behind your back. This is an interesting one. So what is a flatterer, right? They're trying to say words that prop you up. Like they're trying to supposedly be nice to you. Say, oh, you're so wonderful. You're so this, you're so that. But if you're paying close attention, you can tell that they're full of BS. They are just doing this for specific reasons. Why? Because they will approve if you're bad or good. They're not really out for your best interest at heart. They're in it for what their best interest is. And if their best interest is that they approve and encourage you to do bad things, well then, they're going to do it. These types of people are especially important to be wary of if you have any level of position of authority or managing something or organizing something, because they're usually out for something. If you're just a regular person, they don't really, you don't really have much that they want, so they're not going to do that too much. It's something very important to pay attention to. They praise you to your face and put you down behind your back. It might slip up that they tell you that, oh, this is what they said about you. And you think, whoa, that's very different from what they said about me to my face. It's because they're fake. They're false. There's no authenticity, sincerity there. These kind of people are just poison. Be very careful with fake friends like this. You know, the famous I forgot exactly where this came from, but the famous line that I've heard in many TV shows and movies and things: with friends like that, who needs enemies? With friends like that, your enemies would rejoice if you have friends like this. They could only lead to your downfall with vipers and snakes, people like this around you. You can recognize a fake friend who's a flatterer on these 4 grounds. You can recognize a fake friend who's a spender on 4 grounds. Hello, Kim. Hello, Sud. Jayantha. All right, now find out who's a fake friend as a spender. They accompany when you're drinking, roaming the streets at night, frequenting festivals, and gambling. Right? They want you. They want to be around you because you're spending your money. They're going to see if they can get something out of that. They accompany you when you're going to be in vulnerable, stupid positions because you're doing things that you probably shouldn't end up doing. You can recognize a fake friend who's a spender on these 4 grounds. Hello, Jeng. That is what the Buddha said. Then the Holy One, the teacher, went on to say, one friend is all take. Another is all talk. One's just a flatterer. And one's a friend who spends. An astute person understands these 4 enemies for what they are and keeps them at a distance as they shun a risky road. All right, you're traveling and you see a road and you say, I've heard about there's bandits and all kinds of dangers down that road. Maybe I can take a better road. Right? And you see the dangers in people like this. And you decide, maybe I'm feeling a little lonely. Maybe it'd be nice to have friends. But these people are not friends. They're enemies. These people don't have my best interest at heart. They have their own motives, their own motivation. And they wouldn't care if I was dead in a gutter, so long as they got what they wanted. So these type of friends, not worth being friends. Better to walk alone like an elephant in the woods, as the Buddha says. There's no companionship. There's no union with foolish people. There's only suffering. It's very good, wise advice. Now, there's 4 good-hearted friends. Householder's son. You should recognize these 4 good-hearted friends. The helper. The friend in good times and bad. The counselor. And the one who's compassionate. You can recognize a good-hearted friend who's a helper on 4 grounds. They guard you when you're negligent. They guard your property when you're negligent. They keep you safe in times of danger. When something needs doing, they provide you with twice the money you need. Right? Suppose you're the idiot friend and you want to go out gambling and drinking and going out in the dark and all these things, and you have a good-hearted friend and they recognize that you're being an idiot and they want to protect you. They guard you when you're negligent. They guard your property. You want to go gambling or whatever you're going to throw, and they say, no. Maybe you're so drunk they can sneak your money, to do this. I remember in college a couple of times with my friends when they would get really stupid drunk and about to do some stupid things, and I would kind of, do some things to help them out. But they were so drunk they didn't even recognize it. So it worked out pretty good. But this is a person who, even though you're being stupid, they help you. They look out for you. They support you. This is a good word to call them, the friend who's a helper. They keep you safe in times of danger. And they provide you with twice the money you need. That's pretty good. This is one of these things as we get into good friends, that this is good friendship is something that you should never take for granted. Now, you should really recognize when somebody goes above and beyond to support you and to help you. Right? The Buddha says that if you found a faithful companion, a good friend, you should do all that you can to hold on to them and to stay with them. Right? So when it comes to foolish, bad enemy friends, you put all of your effort into avoiding them. And when it comes to good, skillful friends, you put all of your effort into keeping them and sticking around. Having gratitude and joy to have somebody like this in your life, because this is quite rare. Right? You can recognize a good-hearted friend who's a helper on these 4 grounds. You can recognize a good-hearted friend who's the same in good times and bad on these 4 grounds. They tell you secrets. They keep your secrets. They don't abandon you in times of trouble. They'd even give their life for your welfare. Right? They tell you secrets, meaning that they feel comfortable enough with you to tell you things that they probably don't want, everybody to know. And when you do likewise, they're not blabbermouths. They're not telling your secrets all over the place. This is a very skillful, good thing to have a friend who you can keep information in confidence with. You can tell them something in confidence, and you know that it won't be told somewhere else. We see this in right speech. When we're talking about pisunaya being divisive speech, where the Buddha says that a person hears what this person says over there, and they go over to this other person and tell those secrets to that person to divide this person from that. Right? That is wrong speech to do this. But here you have a friend who won't do that. They'll keep your secrets in confidence. They don't abandon you in times of trouble. This is one that's also very important. This is how you know the quality of somebody. The Buddha says you know the quality of somebody by seeing how they react to hard times. And if you go through hard times and they ditch you, well, that's a sign that that's an enemy. That's not a friend. That's somebody who you can rejoice in their leaving, because now you know that you really can't trust them. You can't depend on them. As soon as times got hard, they left. You see this sometimes when people get sick with things like cancer, or they go through hard times, they lose their money or their job or whatever, and their friends, supposed friends, just disappear. This was not a friend. Only a friend in good times. But the time where you will really have appreciation and gratitude to have a friend is in the dark times, is in the bad times, not in the good times. But in the hard times, when things seem hopeless and you don't know what you're going to do, but you have this friend or this couple friends who will have your back and will help see you through the hard times. That's invaluable. Absolutely invaluable. And they even give their life for your welfare. That's extremely rare. That's extremely rare that they would give their life for a friend. But such people do exist. They're just rare. I remember growing up, my one grandfather who died when I was fairly young, but my father would always say many times growing up that my grandfather said, if you have one true friend in your whole life, then count yourself lucky. And I've been lucky enough to have maybe two or three, right? A friend who, even many years later, even as a monk, that I can talk to them and, I know they still have my back, these kind of things, right? Being able to recognize who's foolish and who's not, and who's worthy of cultivating as a friend and who's not. That's a valuable skill. Quality beats quantity any day of the week when it comes to supposed friends. All right. You can recognize a good-hearted friend who's a counselor on 4 grounds. They keep you from doing bad. They support you in doing good. They teach you what you do not know. They explain the path to heaven. You can recognize a good-hearted friend who's a counselor on these 4 grounds. So this is a true Kalyanamitta, right? They call you out when you're doing bad, and they encourage you. They call you out and make sure you know that you're doing something bad, right? They keep you from doing something bad, and they support you in doing good. Very important friend to have. This is you could also see this is kind of befitting the role of being a monastic in a way, right? They keep you from doing bad. They support you in doing good. They teach you what you do not know, and they explain the path to heaven. Right? This is you can recognize a good-hearted friend who's a counselor on these 4 grounds. You can recognize a good-hearted friend who's compassionate on 4 grounds. They don't delight in your misfortune. They delight in your good fortune. They keep others from criticizing you. They encourage praise of you. Could you imagine having a friend that delights in your misfortune? That's not very pleasant. Would that really be a friend? Right? Delighting and making fun of you and laughing at your misfortune? No, of course not. Right? They keep others from criticizing you. This is good too, right? This is, they hear somebody say something bad about you, but they say, no, they're actually a good person, or, this is wrong about them, or something like that, right? There's standing up for your honor, as it were. You can recognize a good-hearted friend who's compassionate on these 4 grounds. Hello, Saw and Stevie. The Buddha spoke this matter. Then the Holy One, the teacher, went on to say, a friend who's a helper, one the same in both pleasure and pain, a friend of good counsel and of one of compassion, an astute friend who understands these 4 friends, an astute person who understands these 4 friends for what they are and carefully looks after them, like a mother the child at her breast. The astute and virtuous shine like a burning flame. See, this is actually an interesting thing, right? This is another aspect of where the Buddha, mother and child, where just like in the Metta Sutta, where people have the misconception that the Buddha is saying that you should look upon all beings like a mother looks upon a child. But no, it's the same as this context here, right? You should look after you have these good friends. Well, you should make sure you look after them and you make sure that they still remain your friends, just like a mother would look after her child. The astute and virtuous shine like a burning flame. They pick up riches as bees, roaming round picking up pollen, and their riches proceed to grow. Like a termite mound piling up in gathering wealth like this. A householder does enough for their family, and they hold on to friends by dividing their wealth in 4. So now we have Buddha very briefly coming in as the financial planner. And then we have a couple of suttas like this. So dividing your wealth in 4. 1 portion is to enjoy. 2 parts invest in work. and the fourth should be kept for times of trouble. Right? So some savings, enjoyment, and to invest back in your work, your business, or whatever, investing in your household, etc. All right. Covering the 6 directions. And how, householder son, does a noble disciple cover the 6 directions? So remember back to, well, some of you weren't around this morning, so maybe you haven't heard this, but in the beginning, the householder son was with wet hair and clothes, paying respects to the 6 directions, right? The cardinal directions, and then above and below. And so then the Buddha said, that's not how we pay respects to the 6 directions in the Buddha's Dhamma and discipline. And then he went through all this sections that we've just been going through. And now the Buddha is going to equate the 6 directions here. So we'll see the Buddha taking that ancient tradition and now adapting it to his teachings. Hello, Gregory. Welcome. These 6 directions should be recognized. Parents as the East, teachers as the South, partner and children as the West, friends and colleagues as the North, slaves and workers as beneath, and ascetics and Brahmins as above. And so now a child, because remember the father passed away and told the son to bow to the 6 directions, to pay respects to the 6 directions. And so now the Buddha is saying a child should serve their parents as the Eastern Quarter in 5 ways, thinking, I will support those who supported me. I'll do my duty for them. I'll maintain the family lineage. I'll take care of the inheritance. When they have passed away, I'll make an offering on their behalf. Right, so this is a duty that children have to the parents. Right? That as they get older and they need support, which, almost all parents end up doing. When you get older, very, very few people are spry and walking around and doing well when they're 90, right? Almost everybody needs some level of support and help as we get older. So this is the thought. I should support my parents. I should take care of them because they supported me as a little helpless baby. They helped me, they raised me, etc. I'll do my duty for them. I'll maintain the family lineage. Right? This is something that in many cultures, you recognize, you remembered your family. In the suttas, we see the Brahmins talking about recognizing their family lineage back 7 generations. Right? So this thinking about your part in a much larger thing. That my ancestors worked hard to get us to this point, and I don't want to squander the inheritance and ruin all the hard work that my parents and my grandparents and my great-grandparents did. So I'll be responsible and taking care of these things, and then I'll make an offering after they pass on. Parents, served by the children in these 5 ways, show compassion to the children in 5 ways. So this is the parents' duty to children. They keep them from doing bad. They support them in doing good. They train them in a profession. They connect them with a suitable marriage partner. They transfer the inheritance in due time. Parents served by their children in these 5 ways show compassion to them in these 5 ways. Back in the old days when, there was no such thing as school and college and all this stuff, you were trained by your parents. You did the same job that they did, or they set you up as an apprentice to learn a skill from somebody else. That was part of the job of the parent and raising you well and finding you a good marriage partner. Although these days, that's not how that works either. All right. And that's how the Eastern Quarter is covered, kept safe and free of peril. Right? So this is both the parents and the children doing their duty to each other. That's how that quarter is kept safe and free of peril. When either parents or children are not doing it right, well, that's when all kinds of trouble happens. Now, student and teacher. A student should serve their teacher as the Southern Quarter in 5 ways. By rising for them, by serving them, by listening well, by looking after them, and by carefully learning their profession. I wonder if the rising for them means like getting up early, because you see this in the suttas a couple times in the Vinaya about the taking care of the senior. You get up early and you set up things and stuff like that. Or that maybe means like rising early in the morning or something like that. I don't know. It's a good. All right. Teachers served by their students in these 5 ways show compassion for them in 5 ways. They make sure they're well educated and well drilled in memorization. They clearly explain all the knowledge of the profession. They introduce them to their friends and colleagues. They help you with networking. They provide protection in every region. Teachers served by their students in these 5 ways show their compassion to them in these 5 ways. And that's how the Southern Quarter is covered, kept safe and free of peril. A husband should serve his wife as the Western Quarter in these 5 ways. By treating her with honor, by not looking down on her, by not being unfaithful, by relinquishing authority to her, and by presenting her with adornments. A wife served by her husband in these 5 ways shows compassion to him in these 5 ways. She's well organized in her work. She manages the domestic help. She's not unfaithful. She preserves his earnings. She's deft and tireless in all her duties. A wife served by her husband in these 5 ways shows compassion to him in these 5 ways. And that's how the Western Quarter is covered, kept safe, and free of peril. Notice how in all of these, there's a reciprocal relationship. Both sides have to uphold their duties, or else it falls apart. Because if one side's not upholding the duties, the other side's not going to uphold the duties. It just all falls apart. It's a reciprocal, symbiotic relationship in each of these groups. A gentleman should serve his friends and colleagues as the Northern Quarter in 5 ways: giving, kindly words, taking care, equality, and not using tricky words. Friends and colleagues served by a gentleman in these 5 ways shows compassion to him in 5 ways. They guard him when he's negligent. We've seen this under Good Friends section. They guard his property when they're negligent. They guard him. They keep him safe in times of danger. They don't abandon him in times of trouble. They honor his descendants. Friends and colleagues served by a gentleman in these 5 ways show compassion to him in these 5 ways. And that's how the northern quarter is covered, kept safe, and free of peril. A master should serve their slaves and workers as the lower quarter in these 5 ways. By organizing work according to ability, by paying food and wages, by nursing them when sick, by sharing special treats, and by giving time off work. Slaves and workers served by their master in these 5 ways show compassion to him in these 5 ways. They get up first and go to bed last. They don't steal. They do their work well, and they promote a good reputation. Slaves and workers served by their master in such a way, these 5 ways show compassion to him in these 5 ways. And that is how the lower quarter is covered, kept safe and free of peril. A gentleman should serve ascetics and Brahmins as the upper quarter in these 5 ways. By loving deeds of body, speech, and mind, by not turning them away at the gate. Right? When a monk comes to the house on alms round, you don't turn them away. You support them, right? That's what this means here. And by providing them with material needs. Ascetics and Brahmins served by a gentleman in these 5 ways show compassion in these to him in these 6 ways. Now, this is how monks should be having compassion for you and looking out for you. They keep him from doing bad. They support him in doing good. They think of him with kindly thoughts. They teach him what he does not know. They clarify what he has already learned. They explain the path to heaven. Ascetics and Brahmins, served by gentlemen in these 5 ways, show compassion to him in these 6 ways. And that's how the upper quarter is covered, kept safe and free of peril. The Buddha spoke this matter. Then the Holy One, the teacher, went on to say, parents are the east, teachers are the south, wives and child the west, friends and colleagues the north, slaves and workers below, and ascetics and Brahmins above. By honoring these quarters, a householder does enough for their family. The astute and the virtuous, the gentle and the articulate, the humble and the kind. They're the kind who win glory. The diligent, not the lazy. Those not disturbed by troubles. Those consistent in conduct, the intelligent. They're the kind who win glory. The inclusive, the makers of friends, the bountiful, those rid of stinginess, those who lead, train, and persuade. They're the kind who win glory. Giving in kindly words, taking care here, and treating equally in all worldly conditions, as befits them in each case. These ways of being inclusive in the world are like the moving chariot's linchpin. If there were no such ways of being inclusive, neither mother nor father would be respected and honored for what they've done for their children. But since these ways of being inclusive do exist, the astute do regard them well, so they achieve greatness and are praised. When this was said, Sigālaka, the householder's son, said to the Buddha, "Excellent, sir, excellent. It is as if he were righting the overturned, or revealing the hidden, or pointing out the path to the lost, or lighting a lamp in the dark so people with clear eyes can see what's there. The Buddha has made the teaching clear in many ways. I go for refuge to the Buddha, to the teaching, and to the mendicant Sangha. From this day forth, may the Buddha remember me as a lay follower who has gone for refuge for life." All right. And so now, after almost 2 hours, we finished this sutta. And now, as I mentioned, we are going to cover the Mangala Sutta as well, because Mangala Sutta, I think, supports this, what we've gone over, but also it adds a different dimension that I like to talk about. So the Mangala Sutta link should also be in the description as we go over it. Hello, Yankee. Hello, Tomkran. So let's go over Maha Mangala Sutta. Maha Mangala Sutta is a very commonly chanted Parita chant, blessing, protection chant in the Buddhist world, but it is also among some of the earliest strata of the suttas. Right, so this is very ancient. This wonderful sutta. So this is what I have heard. At one time, the Blessed One was staying near Savatthi in Jeta Grove, Anathapindika's monastery. On that occasion, as the night was coming to an end, a certain god of great beauty approached the Blessed One while illuminating the whole Jeta's grove. After bowing to the Blessed One, they stood to one side and spoke a verse. Many gods and humans desiring well-being are seekers of good fortune. Please tell me the greatest of good fortune. So Mangala here, Mangala means blessing, good fortune. Right? These are things that one should have a lot of gratitude if they have them. Right? These are good fortune, blessing, etc. So the first one, we've covered this a lot today. Not to associate with fools. Right? We've covered this in this last sutta. How many times the Buddha is talking about not associating with foolish people, but to associate with the wise and to honor those worthy of honor. This is the greatest good fortune. So what we see here that not to associate with fools, associating with the wise. This is good fortune. This is a blessing. But notice what we've been talking about. This is not just something that magically happens. This is something that you work for, that you develop. You avoid unskillful, foolish people, and you develop friendships with good, skillful people. So this Mangala Sutta, important thing to see in this sutta is this is not just something you're happy that random magical things arose in your life. This is gratitude for them being in your life, and also the gratitude that you worked for these things to be in your life. And if you don't have them in your life, well, this is also a wonderful guide to say, I have a bunch of fools around me. Why don't I abandon them and develop good, skillful friends? All right. And to honor those worthy of honor. That's important too, because honoring somebody worthy of honor is honoring the idea that there's goodness, that there's honor. In this society, we kind of mock that in a way. These people are not, who are these people worthy of honor? They're not worthy of honor, these kind of things. It's just another sign of the degradation of society. We do not honor those worthy of honor. We honor pop stars and movie people and stuff like that instead of those who are worthy of honor. Now, continuing on, to live in a suitable place, having previously done good karma, and to apply oneself in a right way. This is the greatest good fortune. To live in a suitable place. A suitable place for what? Suitable place for work, to raise a family, to hear the Dhamma. Not everybody's lucky enough to be born in such a place due to past karma and all kinds of various factors. But we can do our best to work so that we can fulfill this. This is both something to be grateful for and also an ideal to strive towards. You don't just magically have past done good actions. You had to have done those actions. Right? There's nothing that can be had in Buddhism that you can just magically wish for and it arises. That's not how it works. To be educated and to have a good vocation, a good job. To be well trained in one's chosen field. And to speak words that are well spoken. This is the greatest good fortune. Right? To be educated and have a vocation. Right? Obviously, if we're going from the Sigālaka Sutta that we were just going over, that's part of the parent's duty is to make sure you're educated and set up in a good vocation and all these things. But that's not always something that happens. Maybe you have bad parents. Maybe your parents died when you were young. Who knows? So again, it's a gratitude, a blessing to be grateful for, and an ideal to strive for. To support one's mother and father, to cherish one's partner and children, and to have a job without stress. This is the greatest good fortune. I think we've covered that pretty well. Generosity and an upright life. Kindness towards one's relatives. And doing of blameless deeds. This is the greatest good fortune. So practicing generosity. Living a straight, moral, ethical, virtuous life. Kindness towards kin. Again, grateful to have done these things, an ideal to strive for, things to develop. So that when you practice sila nusati, reflecting on your good deeds, you can remember and reflect on all these good things that you've done. To refrain from what is unwholesome, to abstain from all intoxicants. Okay? Don't be going out in the middle of the night, cavorting, going to festivals, gambling, drinking, all these kind of things that we went over in the sutta. To be steadfast in good qualities. This is the greatest fortune and blessing. Respect and humility, contentment and gratitude, all very rare things in a person. So not too many people can have gratitude, can see and love and have gratitude that these are qualities in them. But we can all really try to strive to have these qualities. Respect and humility, contentment and gratitude, and the timely hearing of the Dhamma. This is the greatest good fortune. Being patient and easy to correct. Seeing of monks and nuns, and timely discussion on Dhamma. This is the greatest good fortune. Having patience, hard thing to have. Hard thing to develop. But boy, when you have patience, you experience various things where because of patience, you saved yourself a lot of suffering. There can be lots of gratitude. You can definitely see that as a blessing. Being easy to correct, right? When somebody, at least in good faith, is trying to tell you you're wrong or you're doing something wrong or you should do something better or different, you don't get defensive and puffed up and be like, who is this person? Blah, blah, blah. You say, oh, okay, well, they might be right. Let me listen. Easy to correct. And seeing bhikkhus and bhikkhunis, right? Seeing the mendicant sangha and hearing Dhamma. This is a blessing. As somebody who didn't have any place such as this growing up, when I was a Buddhist, being able to see monks in person, that was truly a blessing for me when I was able to do it. Asceticism and the spiritual life. Insight into the noble truths and the seeing for oneself of Nibbana. This is the greatest good fortune. Right? Living the spiritual life, becoming awakened. A mind that remains unshaken by the ups and downs of the world, sorrowless, stainless, and safe. This is the greatest good fortune. So the greatest and greatest of blessings is to have followed the Noble Eightfold Path, developed the path, and become awakened. Then no more suffering. So this is one of my favorite lines in all of the Dhamma. Having performed these things, nowhere can they be conquered. They are secure wherever they go, right? They are unconquerable. They have completed all of these blessings. This is their greatest good fortune. All right. So now we have a half hour if we need it for questions. So questions related to this morning and today, related to layperson's ethics and virtues, blessings, etc. Jeng says, dark spirit hangs out at casinos, bars, war places, and at fear time. Yeah. Dark spirit, yeah. Sud says, what does it mean to avoid evil? Since evil can be defined in many ways. Well, the Buddha, this word papa is reserved for really bad evil deeds. Right? This goes beyond akusala, which would be unskillful or unwholesome. And of course, like the worst, the biggest of evil deeds is wounding a Buddha, killing an arahant, killing your parents, causing a schism in the Sangha, etc. So at the very least, avoid the major evil deeds that send you right to hell. That's the very least you should avoid those things. After that, well, like you say, evil can be defined in many ways. Well, I kind of like how there's a distinction here between the unskillful and evil. Like, there's doing something bad, maybe intentional, unintentional, whatever, and then there's doing something like that you can't really, there's like, well, according to such and such philosophy or ethics, that's maybe not fully evil, blah, 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 blah. And then there's like, oh, crap, that's evil. Like I think most people can really know what's for the most part, at least most things that are really evil. At least most people who are virtuous and good should know these things. But that's what it means. At the very least, you avoid the 5 heavy karmas, right? As I explained. Amit says, Bhante, can you elaborate on right livelihood in today's day and age? So, in some ways, right livelihood is the same as it's ever been. In some ways, it's a bit more complicated. The Buddha wisely doesn't give a lot of examples because it would take thousands of pages, right? Under the Noble Eightfold Path, under Samma Ajivo, you have abandon wrong livelihood and develop right livelihood. Simple. Now, of course, there is the one small sutta. It's about a paragraph long, where the Buddha basically says, if you're a Buddhist, you should probably avoid these 5 professions. Now, which would be, making and selling weapons, making and selling alcohol, making and selling poison, being a slaver, right? Capturing people and selling them as slaves, being a butcher, killing animals and selling meat, etc. So these are 5 things that the Buddha says you probably shouldn't do. But of course, back in the day, you were both the person doing the work and then selling the product. You were the blacksmith, the cobbler, the fletcher. Today, the person making the alcohol is the waitress that's bringing you the alcohol that you ask. Is she making it? No. Is it wrong livelihood to be a waitress? I would say that would depend on the person and what they feel. And you could say another thing. I've actually had some of these examples have actually come up. People have asked me questions in the years I was teaching retreats and doing Q&As at Bhavana. One of the things is, well, my part of the corporation does really good things, but the corporation also has parts that do really bad things. Is that wrong livelihood? Well, I mean, if you want my answer, really, according to early Buddhism, according to the suttas, no. If what you're doing is right livelihood, it's right livelihood. But somebody, as they're developing in their practice, might think, you know what, I don't even want to be part of this corporation. And then they leave. Right? That's up to them. You have to have a level of understanding your own consciousness, your own inner dialogue, your own intuition as to whether what you're doing truly fulfills right livelihood or not. So there's some nuance there. There's some responsibility on you that the Buddha puts, that you have to look at it deeply and see, is what you're doing right livelihood or wrong livelihood? BC 67 says, if a parent abandons their child but returns decades later for help when they're sick, should the child still help? I'm confused there because of the symbiotic relationship you mentioned. If the child is able to, yes, I would say still help. At the very least, they brought you into the world, even if they didn't do anything else to help you afterwards. So in that way, you owe some level of a debt of gratitude to them. However, I don't necessarily think you should be forced to do that. It really will be depend on, like, if you're a decent Buddhist practitioner and you have some wisdom and you practice lots of metta and goodwill and you think you could do it, then I would say do it, yes. Because that's, if anything, that's just more good karma and good deeds for you. Regardless of, your parents and what they did or they didn't do. It would be good. It would be good for you in the long run if you can do it. If you can't, I don't think anybody would blame you. Right? But if you can, I think it would be the better thing to do. It is a blessing that we live in the age of the internet, live internet Dhamma. Yes, if we were doing the Mangala Sutta today, definitely internet Dhamma would be part of it. This is so wonderful to be able to connect with people all over the world and to share and hear Dhamma from them. This is one of the reasons why I personally believe we're in a golden age of Dhamma. So many people in the Buddhist world think that we're in a degraded age. They're just waiting for the next Buddha. The next Buddha should be around any year now. No, probably not for many, many, many thousands of years or more. I think that Buddhism is in a good time because of the internet, because we're able to, people from all over the world in places, for me, I had to drive 5 hours to find the place I could learn Dhamma from. There's some people that, they'd have to drive across multiple countries to find such a place. So, I'm quite grateful I only had to drive 5 hours. And then I was able to find monks online, even though back then, when I first started, there was very, very few. But the one or two that was online, I'm very grateful to, even to this day. So, yes. And the fact that my own community, as you well know, Gregory, we have people in this community from every continent except for Antarctica. Even people from Africa and so many places where there's really very little Buddhism, very little Dhamma. But because of the internet, if you are inclined to hear the Dhamma, you're able to do it. It's a wonderful age. Of course, there's a lot of bad stuff when it comes with the internet too. All the social medias and TikToks and all this wacky stuff going on. But that's just society. That's how it always is. It's good and bad. And you can use a tool for good and you can use a tool for bad. All right. Amaranta is admiring all the kinds of people in the 6 directions. Yeah, well, it's these are the people in the society, like all the different categories of people that you're going to engage with in the society, right? So this is kind of like, you want to keep a society pretty healthy and doing well? Well, everybody should be keeping their end of the bargain, right? And then things will go smooth. Otherwise, not so much. And we see this in the suttas, in one of the other Digha Nikaya suttas, where the Buddha explains the cycle of how the people are very ethical and moral, and they live for many thousands of years, and then the ethics and morals decay and their age decays and society falls into ruin, and it's just this cycle of growth and decay over and over and over again. Amit says, what is akusala kamma? So akusala is unskillful or unwholesome. Kamma is an action that you have performed. So what you're doing right now is kusala kamma. You are logged in to hear the Dhamma, to hear the Sutta that we went through. That's very skillful kamma that will lead to kusala vipaka. Well, maybe you can't say kusala vipaka, just pleasant vipaka, pleasant fruit results in the future. So akusala kamma will not lead to pleasant fruit in the future. So instead of listening to the monk, logging on and listening to the Dhamma, you could be out gambling and carousing, with all your fake enemy friends. And that is some real akusala kamma. That's not going to help you in the long run. So it says, Bhante, if you consider each aspect of the Mangala Sutta as inclusive criteria for goodness, doesn't the majority of the people in the world fall into being included in at least the first few stanzas? Let me double check here. Oh. Not to associate with really? Associate with the wise, honor the ones worthy of honor. I mean, I don't know. I wouldn't say everybody does these things. I don't know. Maybe you have more faith in humanity than I do. Don't the majority of people in the world fall into being included in at least the first few? Depends. I don't know about majority. A good number, probably. The Buddha quite clearly says that the overwhelming majority of people who are human in this life will not be human in the next life. It's because they were not skillful, right? And also explains how rare it is to be a human, to be born as a human. Very, very rare thing. So most of us are going to essentially waste our human life, our rare human life. So it is what it is, just because we don't know. We don't know what is a blessing, what to be grateful for, and what is good. All right. Well, I'll give it another minute, see if anything pops up, and then if not, we'll call it a night. Huh? Oh, okay. We have a question here.
So when having a good friend, how do you maintain not becoming attached to them? Because good friends have to, they help each other. How do you maintain not becoming attached to them?
So how do you maintain not becoming attached to a good friend? So I would say there's skillful attachment and unskillful attachment, right? Just like when Ananda is asked, is there such a thing as good craving? And he says, yes, the craving that leads to the ending of all craving. So there's skillful attachment to things that are going to be of benefit to you. Like, oh man, I want to go to the monastery this weekend, or I want to do this weekend. I want to go on a retreat. And maybe even you become a little bit too much of a retreat addict. You want to keep going on a retreat. Right? And so maybe there's some unskillfulness there, but there's a lot of good skillfulness. So, if there's some wisdom in maintaining a skillful friendship and also not being so crazy that they run away from you, right? If you're too attached and you're too kind of like overbearing, they'll run, then you'll run away. So there's some wisdom in that, but it's just a matter of doing what you need to do to maintain that friendship, maintain that that connection. If you're leading into the unskillful, even if your intention is to make sure that you're around the skillful person, then that's something to be insightful about, something to understand. Okay, I'm pushing a little too hard, or I'm doing this too much. Let me back up. So you have to kind of be able to read the situation and figure out what you might be doing that's wrong, and not So Gregory says, what meditation did the Buddha teach lay followers? That depended on the lay followers, right? On Friday morning, we're going to go over the sutta where the lay people talk about how they're, from time to time they practice satipatthana, and the Buddha talks to them about this. So it depends on the lay followers, right? The Buddha is always talking to the people in front of him, not large groups. So if the lay followers are kind of able to practice and hear deeper Dhamma, he'll give it to them. If not, he won't. He'll teach heaven, right? Generosity, heaven, etc. So it depends on the person. Okay, what's the question?
So in the Sigālaka Sutta, section 25, it states he stops others who speak against you. And what came to mind was the simile of the saw. So how there was a section where the bhikkhus were talking, the bhikkhu was sticking up for the bhikkhunis, and then the same thing. So what's the difference there?
I think the difference there would be that the Buddha quite clearly tells Maha that that's not how a monastic should be, right? So I think the difference there is that the Buddha is talking about monastic attitude, and even still a little overly attached, kind of an attitude there. So that's what I would say. There's the difference between lay and monastic there. Can I explain the consciousness aggregate and clinging to the self in the 5 aggregates? Oh boy. Do you have a couple hours? I don't know if we have a couple hours. So consciousness when described by the Buddha, is in relation to the six senses, right? And in dependent origination, with the arising of consciousness comes the arising of name and form and the arising of the six senses. So consciousness is always, or almost always, in relation to these things. This is what's important to understand when it comes to consciousness. When you're clinging to the self, what you're clinging to is the five aggregates. What you're clinging to is a created layer above the five aggregates. The five aggregates are simply the five aggregates, but we create the five aggregates subject to clinging, and then we name it. And then we say, that's me, that's not me. That's my view, that's not my view, etc. Consciousness is only one aspect of what we name to be me, mine, and myself. So it says, is there a gradual progression here? Like the least we could do is avoid fools. But really, what we should do is the things he mentions in the last stanzas of Mangala Sutta. That's an interesting question. That is an interesting question. I can definitely see a little bit of a progression in that. I've never thought of it in that way. But thinking about it now, it starts with avoiding foolish people and it ends with becoming awakened. So, yeah, I would probably get behind there probably being some level of a progression there. Now I'm going to have to, that's going to be something when I go through Mangala Sutta again, that's going to be in my head because I've never thought of it as like a linear progression. It's possible. It's also possible not. So sometimes we have to be careful that the way things are listed in the suttas, we kind of just think that that's like the only way or the only progression or the only path or something like that. And that's not always the case because the Buddha will, in other suttas, go things at different angles, like the 12 links of dependent origination. He doesn't always start with ignorance. So. All right, friends, I think we're good. So I will be back on Friday morning where we'll go over the sutta about the lay people practicing Satipatthana. And Thursday will be covered by monastics outside of Empty Cloud. Okay, friends. So Sukhi Hotu, may you be happy and at ease. Practice well and be well. May you have a spiritually successful and peaceful practice until we meet again. Have a good night.